My name's Emily, and I'm 35. I'm sitting on my porch, coffee gone cold, staring at the house I poured my heart into for 15 years. James. My husband threw me out like yesterday's news, saying I was too old, too boring. Now his new wife Tara struts around my home, wearing my life like it's hers. But I've got a plan, something big, and they won't see it coming. Ever been replaced by someone you trusted? Where are you watching from? Hit subscribe if you felt this sting, and let's unpack this together. I stood in our kitchen, chopping carrots for dinner, the spring light filtering through the blinds. James hadn't looked me in the eye for weeks, and it was starting to gnaw at me. I'm Emily, 35, and I'd always thought our marriage was solid, built on late-night talks and shared dreams. But lately, he'd come home late muttering about work, his phone buzzing at odd hours. I tried to shrug it off. Stress, I told myself. He's just tired. But my gut whispered something else. Last night, I'd found a receipt crumpled in his jacket pocket. A necklace from that fancy jeweler downtown, $300. My birthday was months away, and he hadn't gifted me jewelry in years. I held it, my hands trembling, picturing him slipping it around someone else's neck. I shoved it back, heart pounding, and waited for him to get home. When he did, he barely grunted a hello, heading straight for the shower. I set the table, the clink of plates too loud in the quiet. "James," I called, keeping my voice steady. "You want wine with dinner?" He poked his head out, towel around his neck. "Nah, I'm good. Got an early meeting tomorrow." His eyes darted away, and I felt that twist in my chest again. Meetings. Always meetings. I nodded, forcing a smile, and turned back to the stove. After dinner, he sprawled on the couch, scrolling his phone, chuckling at something. I sat across from him, folding laundry, trying to act normal. "You've been working late a lot," I said, casual as I could. "Everything okay at the office?" He didn't look up. "Yeah, just busy. You know how it is?" His tone was flat, like I was a coworker, not his wife. I pressed on. "Found a receipt in your pocket. Necklace. Pretty expensive." My voice caught, betraying me. He froze just for a second, then laughed. "You're snooping now. It's for a client's wife." Part of a deal. Don't make it a thing." His words were sharp, cutting through my hope. I nodded, folding a shirt, my fingers tight on the fabric. "Right. Just curious." But I wasn't buying it. Not anymore. The next morning, Clara came over, her nurse's scrubs still on from the night shift. She's my best friend, the one who knows me better than I know myself. We sat on the back deck, sipping iced tea, the kids' old swing set creaking in the breeze. "You look like hell," she said, blunt as always. I laughed, but it sounded hollow. "James is off. I don't know. I found this receipt and he's acting weird." I told her everything, my voice low, like saying it out loud made it real. Clara leaned forward, her eyes narrowing. You remember my ex. Same vibe. Secretive, dismissive. I ignored it too long." She paused, sipping her tea. "Check his phone, or his email. You deserve to know." I shook my head. "That's not me. I can't just invade his privacy." But her words stuck heavy. Clara sighed. "You're too good for him, you know that. Just don't let him make you feel small." That afternoon, I was alone, the house too quiet. James had left his old laptop on the counter, the one we used for bills. I stared at it, my pulse racing. Clara's voice echoed in my head. "Just look." I opened it, hands shaky, and logged in. His email was still synced, a dummy account I didn't recognize. My breath caught as I clicked. Messages to someone named Tara. "Can't wait to see you," one said. "You're incredible." Another, "She suspects nothing." I slammed the laptop shut, my chest tight. Tara. His coworker, the one he'd mentioned casually, the new hire, who was great at presentations. I wanted to scream, to call him right then, but I just sat there, the words burning into me. I wasn't paranoid. I wasn't crazy. But I didn't have proof. Not really. Not yet. I needed something solid before I could face him. The doubt was eating me alive, but so was the hope that I was wrong. The next evening, I stood at the sink, scrubbing dishes harder than necessary, the water scalding my hands. James was out again, another late meeting. The emails I'd seen kept looping in my mind, Tara's name like a splinter I couldn't pull out. I dried my hands and paced the living room, the clock ticking too loud. I wanted to confront him, to demand answers, but fear held me back. What if he admitted it? What if he didn't? Either way, I wasn't ready for the truth to break us. My sister Hannah called, her voice bright through the phone. "Hey, Em, I'm in town tomorrow. Can I crash at your place?" I hesitated, then agreed, craving her company. Hannah always had a way of cutting through my fog, seeing things I couldn't. When she arrived, she hugged me tight, her perfume sharp and familiar. We sat on the couch, sharing a bottle of red wine, the kids' old board games stacked in the corner. "You okay?" she asked, eyeing me over her glass. I shrugged, sipping too fast. "Just tired. Work's been nuts." But Hannah wasn't buying it. She set her glass down, leaning in. "It's James, isn't it? He's been weird. I saw it at Mom's last Christmas, the way he kept checking his phone, smirking." Her words hit like a punch. I hadn't told her about the emails or the receipt, but her suspicion fueled mine. I poured more wine, my hands unsteady. "He's just busy," I said, but my voice cracked. Hannah raised an eyebrow. "Busy or distracted?" "Come on, Em, you're not dumb. You've got that look like you're carrying his secrets." I wanted to tell her everything, but shame stopped me. What kind of wife lets her husband slip away? Instead, I changed the subject, asking about her new job. She let it go, but her eyes lingered, searching. The next morning, James was home for once, eating cereal at the counter. Hannah breezed in all smiles, but I saw her watching him, her jaw tight. "Morning, James," she said, too cheerful. "Long night at the office." He grunted, barely looking up. "Yeah, big project." I busied myself with coffee, my stomach churning. Hannah shot me a look, one that said, "See, he's hiding something." After he left, Hannah cornered me in the laundry room, folding towels with quick, angry snaps. "He's lying, Em. I know that vibe. Remember his buddy's wedding? He was all over that bartender and you laughed it off. You always do." Her words stung, dragging up memories I'd buried. I folded a towel slow, my throat tight. "I don't know what to do, hon. I found emails. To some woman, Tara. But it's not clear. Not enough to accuse him." She stopped, grabbing my shoulders. "You don't need a smoking gun. You feel it. That's enough. Check his phone, his car, something. You're not crazy." I pulled away, shaking my head. "I can't. If I'm wrong, I'll ruin everything." Hannah sighed, softening. "And if you're right, you're worth more than this, Em. Don't let him make you doubt yourself." Her words stayed with me all day, a drumbeat in my chest. That evening, I tried to reconnect with James. I planned a surprise dinner, his favorite lasagna candles flickering on the table. I even put on the dress he used to love, blue with tiny white flowers. When he walked in, he paused, eyebrows raised. "What's this?" he asked, his tone more curious than touched. I smiled, nervous. "Just thought we could have a night, like old times." He sat, but his eyes kept drifting to his phone. We ate in near silence, the lasagna tasteless in my mouth. "This is nice," I said, desperate to fill the quiet. "Maybe we could take a weekend away soon?" He nodded, distracted. "Yeah, maybe." Then his phone buzzed, and he grabbed it, typing quickly. "Work," he muttered, standing. "I gotta make a call. Thanks for dinner." He was out the door before I could respond. I sat there, the candles dripping wax, my dress feeling like a costume. The hope I'd clung to was crumbling, replaced by a cold, creeping dread. I cleared the table, my movements mechanical, and found myself back at his laptop. I opened it, heart hammering, and dug deeper into that dummy account. More emails to Tara, newer ones. "You make me feel alive," he wrote. "I'm counting the days." My vision blurred, tears burning, but I kept reading, each word a blade. He was slipping away, and I was running out of time to prove it. I woke up to the sound of James' car pulling out of the driveway, the summer heat already creeping through the windows. It was July, and our house felt like a pressure cooker, every creak and hum amplifying my unease. I'm Emily, 35. And the emails to Tara were haunting me, each one a nail in the coffin of my marriage. I hadn't confronted him yet. I kept hoping I'd find a way to be wrong, but every day chipped away at that illusion. At breakfast, I tried to act normal, pouring coffee while Hannah lingered, her suitcase by the door. She was leaving today, and I dreaded being alone with my thoughts. James came back briefly, grabbing his laptop bag. "Gotta run," he said, barely glancing at me. Hannah watched him, her lips tight. "You're looking sharp, James," she said, her voice edged. "Big day with the new hire?" He froze, then smirked. "Just work, Hannah. Not everyone's got time to meddle." I winced, the air crackling. After he left, Hannah hugged me. "Call me if you need me, Em. Don't let him gaslight you." I nodded, but my chest was heavy. I headed to work, my marketing firm, a small office downtown. The hum of computers and chatter usually grounded me, but today it grated. My coworker Marcus noticed, sliding into the chair beside me. "You okay, Em? You've been quiet." I forced a smile. "Just a rough week." He leaned closer, lowering his voice. "When my ex started pulling away, it was little things, late nights, snappy comments. Trust your instincts." His words hit too close, and I changed the subject, burying myself in emails. That evening, I was folding laundry when James got home, his tie loosened, eyes distant. We were supposed to host Hannah for dinner before she left, but she'd already gone to her hotel, sensing the tension. I set a basket of clothes down, trying to keep my voice light. "You missed Hannah. She was hoping to say goodbye." He shrugged, grabbing a beer from the fridge. "Yeah, well, she'll survive. I had a long day." His dismissiveness stung, but I pushed on. "You've been having a lot of those. Maybe we could talk. I feel like we're drifting." He turned, his expression hardening. "Drifting? You're always on my case. Em, maybe if you weren't so frumpy, I'd want to come home sooner." The word landed like a slap. Frumpy. I stood there, clutching a pair of socks, my face burning. Hannah's warning echoed, but before I could respond, he was out the door, muttering about needing air. I sank onto the couch, the room spinning. He'd never spoken to me like that, not in 15 years. Later, I was upstairs sorting through his desk for a bill when I heard his phone buzz in the drawer. My hands shook as I opened it. A voicemail from Tara, her voice soft, playful. "Hey, you left your jacket at the bar. Can't wait for tomorrow." The bar. My mind raced to Clara's story. She'd seen them together, holding hands, and hadn't told me yet. I played it again, her laugh slicing through me. I dropped the phone, my breath shallow. He wasn't just distant. He was building a whole other life. At work the next day, I was a mess, my focus shot. Marcus caught me staring at my screen, a spreadsheet untouched. Talk to me, he said, his eyes kind. I hesitated, then spilled just enough James late nights the voicemail. Marcus sighed. My ex drained our account before I caught on. Check your finances, Em. Protect yourself. His advice was a lifeline, but it terrified me. I nodded, promising to look, but inside I was unraveling. James wasn't just betraying me, he was rewriting who I was, making me feel small and worthy. That night, I waited for him the house, dark except for a single lamp. He came in late, reeking of cologne I didn't recognize. I stood, my voice steady despite the storm inside. James, we need to talk. Now. He rolled his eyes, tossing his keys on the counter. What is it, Em? I'm beat. I took a breath, ready to mention the voicemail, but his phone rang, and he answered it, turning away. I heard her voice. Tara laughing, and my heart sank. He was slipping further, and I was losing the strength to pull him back. James hung up his back to me, the kitchen clock ticking like a heartbeat. I stood frozen, Tara's laughter still ringing in my ears. I'm Emily, 35, and every second of his silence was carving out pieces of me. I wanted to scream, to demand who she was, why she mattered more, but my voice caught trapped behind years of keeping the peace. He turned, finally, his face annoyed like I was the problem. What's with you tonight? He snapped, grabbing another beer. I swallowed, my hands clenching. I heard her, James. On your phone. Who's Tara? My voice was low, shaking, but I held his gaze. He laughed sharp and cold, like I'd told a bad joke. You're really doing this. She's a coworker, Em. We were talking about a pitch. Stop making drama. His words were smooth, practiced, but his eyes flicked away, and I knew he was lying. I stepped closer, my heart pounding. A pitch. At midnight, you think I'm stupid? He slammed the beer down, the sound making me flinch. Yeah, maybe I do. You're always nagging, always assuming the worst. Maybe I'm just done with this. He gestured between us, his face twisted with something I couldn't name, disgust, maybe. I felt my knees buckle, but I stayed upright, gripping the counter. Before I could respond, he grabbed his keys and walked out the door, slamming behind him. I sank to the floor, the tiles cold against my legs, my breath coming in gasps. Done with this. Done with me. I replayed every moment of our marriage, searching for when I'd lost him. Was it when I stopped wearing makeup every day? When I took on extra work to save for our future? The questions choked me, each one heavier than the last. The next morning, I was at my desk staring at a client proposal when Clara texted, "Meet me for lunch. Urgent." I drove to our usual diner, the smell of fries and coffee grounding me. But her face was grim when I slid into the booth. She didn't waste time. I saw James last night at Murphy's bar. With Tara. They weren't just talking. They were close. Hands, whispers, the whole deal. Her voice was soft, but every word was a knife. I stared at my water glass, the ice melting into pools. Why didn't you tell me sooner? I whispered. Clara reached for my hand, her eyes wet. I wanted to be sure. I didn't want to hurt you if I was wrong. But I'm not wrong. I pulled my hand back, my throat tight. I wanted to yell at her, to blame her for knowing, but I couldn't. She was just the messenger. The real betrayal was his. Back home, I found James's desk drawer, unlocked papers spilling out. My hands shook as I sifted through them, desperate for something to make sense of this. Buried under receipts was a lease agreement for a sleek black car, Tara's name on it, paid from our joint account. I stared at the numbers, my vision blurring. Thousands of dollars gone without a word to me. He'd been funneling our money to her, building her a life while I was begging for scraps of his time. I called Marcus, my voice barely steady. You were right. He's spending our money. On her. He sighed, his tone gentle but firm. Em, get a lawyer. Now. He's not just cheating, he's stealing from you. I hung up, my mind racing. A lawyer? Divorce. The words felt foreign, impossible. I looked around our living room at the couch we'd picked out together, the photos on the mantel. This was my home, my life, and he was tearing it apart. That night, I cooked dinner, moving like a ghost, the routine my only anchor. James came home acting like nothing had happened, humming as he loosened his tie. I set plates down, my hands trembling. We need to talk about our account, I said, my voice flat. He raised an eyebrow, leaning back. What now? You're auditing me. I held up the lease, my heart in my throat. This. Tara's car. Our money. His face darkened, and for a moment I saw something raw guilt, maybe, or fear. Then he stood towering over me. You're digging through my stuff. You're pathetic, Em. It's a company car, that's all. Drop it. He grabbed his jacket and left again, the doors slam, echoing in my bones. I stood there, the lease crumpled in my fist, my anger boiling over into something sharper, something dangerous. He wasn't just breaking my heart. He was breaking everything I'd built, and I was running out of reasons to stay quiet. October's chill settled over our Ohio suburb, the maple trees blazing red outside our windows. I'm Emily, 35, and the weight of James's lies was crushing me. I'd barely slept, the lease agreement for Tara's car burning a hole in my mind. Our home, once my sanctuary, felt like a stage for his betrayal. I moved through it like a stranger, touching the walls we'd painted, the shelves we'd built. Every corner screamed of a life he was stealing, and I was done pretending it wasn't happening. That morning, I was folding towels in the laundry room when the doorbell rang. I opened it to a courier, his face blank, as he handed me a thick envelope. My name was typed neatly across it, no return address. I tore it open, my hands unsteady, and froze. Divorce papers. James's signature stared up at me, cold and final, dated 2 days ago. He hadn't even warned me, hadn't given me a chance to fight. My knees buckled, and I slid to the floor, the papers scattering like leaves. I don't know how long I sat there. The world muffled my pulse, hammering. The words blurred, irreconcilable differences, division of assets. But one line cut deepest: he wanted the house. My house, the one I'd saved, for the one I'd made a home. I clutched the papers, my nails digging into the edges, and something inside me snapped. I needed answers, not excuses. I grabbed my keys and drove to his office, the papers crumpled in my bag. His office was all glass and sharp angles, a place I'd rarely visited. The receptionist smiled, unaware of the storm I carried. He's in a meeting, she said, but I pushed past my heart, a drum beat. I found him in a conference room, laughing with a woman I knew instantly was Tara. She was younger, her hair sleek, her dress clinging in ways mine never did. They didn't see me at first, his hand brushing hers as they shared a private joke. I stepped in, my voice cutting through their laughter. James, we need to talk. Now. Tara's eyes widened, but she didn't move. James stood, his face shifting from surprise to irritation. Em, what the hell? This isn't the place. I held up the papers, my hand shaking. You served me divorce papers. You didn't even have the guts to tell me yourself. The room went quiet. Tara's gaze darting between us. He grabbed my arm, steering me into the hall, his grip tight. Keep your voice down, he hissed. You're embarrassing yourself. I yanked free, my anger boiling over. Embarrassing? You're throwing away 15 years, and I'm the one who's embarrassing. His eyes narrowed, and he leaned in, his voice low and cruel. I'm in love with Tara, Em. She's everything you're not. Young, exciting. You're too old, too boring. Just sign the papers and get out of my house. The words hit like a fist, each one stripping away the woman I thought I was. I stared at him, the man I'd loved, the man I'd built a life with, and saw a stranger. My throat burned, but I couldn't cry, not yet. Your house, I whispered. I paid for half of it. I made it ours. He smirked, turning away. Good luck proving that. Tara's moving in next week. Deal with it. I drove home in a daze, the world blurring past. When I walked in, Hannah was there, her visit unannounced. She took one look at my face and pulled me into a hug. What happened? She asked, her voice soft. I couldn't speak, just handed her the papers. She read them, her jaw tightening. That bastard, she muttered, pacing. You're not letting him take this house, Em. You fight. Her words sparked something, but I was too raw, too broken. I sank onto the couch, staring at the coffee table where we'd carved our initials years ago. Hannah sat beside me, her hand on mine. I'm calling him, she said, grabbing her phone. I shook my head, but she was already dialing, her voice sharp when he answered. You're a coward, James. You think you can just erase her? You'll regret this. The call turned into a shouting match, Hannah's voice rising until I heard glass shatter. I looked up to see her standing over a broken vase, my favorite, the one we'd bought on our honeymoon. She froze, her eyes wide. I'm sorry, she whispered, but I just stared at the shards, my heart splintering with them. It wasn't just a vase, it was us, our promises, our past, all smashed in a moment. And James didn't care. Hannah's apology hung in the air, the broken vase glinting on the floor. I'm Emily, 35, and my world was crumbling faster than I could catch the pieces. I stood, my legs shaky, and grabbed a broom, sweeping the shards into a pile. Each scrape felt like my heart being scraped raw. I wanted to call James, to scream, but what was the point? He'd already chosen. Tara already erased me. Hannah watched, her eyes wet, but I waved her off. I needed to be alone. I wandered upstairs, the divorce papers still on the kitchen counter, a wound I couldn't close. In our bedroom, I opened the closet to grab a sweater, craving something familiar. But there, hanging among my clothes, was a silk dress I didn't own, scarlet and bold. My breath caught. I pulled it out, my hands trembling, and saw a perfume bottle on the shelf, not mine, its scent sharp and floral. Tara's. I dropped the dress, my stomach churning. She was already here in my space before I'd even packed a bag. I sank onto the bed, the perfume bottle in my hand, its weight foreign. I sprayed it, the mist hitting my wrist, and gagged at the sweetness. It was on my pillows, my sheets seeping into the life I'd built. James hadn't just served me papers, he'd moved her in like I was already gone. I clutched the bottle, my nails digging into my palm, and heard the front door open downstairs. His voice low and casual, talking to someone. Tara. I crept to the landing, my heart a drum in my chest. They were in the living room, her laughter soft, his tone warm the way he used to sound with me. It's perfect, babe, she said, her voice dripping with confidence. Once she's out, we'll redo the kitchen. Make it ours. I gripped the railing, my knuckles white. Ours. My kitchen, where I'd baked birthday cakes, hosted Thanksgivings. I peered down and saw her lounging on my couch, her legs crossed, a glass of my wine in her hand. James chuckled, sitting beside her. She'll sign soon. She's got no fight left. His words were a blade slicing through what little hope I'd clung to. No fight left. I wanted to run down to throw them out, but my feet wouldn't move. I was invisible in my own home, a ghost watching them plan their future. Tara leaned into him, her hand on his knee. Good. This place deserves better than her. I backed away, my breath shallow, and stumbled into the guest room. My hands shook as I dialed my lawyer, Diane, a woman Clara had recommended. Her voice was calm, steady when she answered. Emily, what's going on? I could barely speak, my words tumbling out. He's moving her in. Her clothes, her perfume. He wants the house. I got papers. Diane's tone sharpened. Don't sign anything. Meet me tomorrow. We'll go through your finances. He's not as smart as he thinks. I hung up, my mind racing. Finances. Marcus's warning about James draining our account flashed back. I grabbed my laptop, logging into our bank, my fingers clumsy. The numbers didn't add up. Withdrawals I hadn't authorized, thousands gone. Then I saw it, a loan against the house in James' name, taken out last month. My house, my equity tied up in his lies. I slammed the laptop shut, my chest tight, and heard them laughing downstairs, their voices a taunt. I went to the window, staring at the street where kids rode bikes, where I'd once felt safe. Neighbors were out walking dogs, oblivious to the war inside my walls. I spotted Mrs. Carter, our nosy neighbor, peering over her fence. She waved, but I didn't wave back. I imagined her gossiping, telling everyone James had traded me in for a younger model. The shame burned hotter than my anger, and I sank to the floor, the perfume bottle still in my hand. Tara's voice drifted up, clear and smug. We'll throw a party once it's official. Show everyone, this is our home now. My vision blurred, tears spilling, but I couldn't sob, couldn't scream. I was hollow, my fight drained by their certainty, their audacity. James' betrayal wasn't just personal. It was public, a spectacle I couldn't escape. I curled up the bottle, slipping from my fingers, and let the darkness swallow me, no strength left to face the truth unfolding below. Winter's first snow dusted our Ohio street, the world outside, quiet, but my heart loud with resolve. I'm Emily, 35, and last night's discovery of Tara's presence in my home, coupled with James' loan against our house, had shattered something in me. But from that wreckage, a spark was growing. I wasn't ready to crumble. Not anymore. I moved out that morning, my essentials packed into a suitcase, and rented a small apartment across town. The walls were bare, the air smelled of fresh paint, but it was mine, a space James couldn't touch. I met Diane, my lawyer, at her office downtown, a cramped room stacked with files. Her silver hair was pulled back, her eyes sharp as she spread our bank statements across the desk. Emily, you've got leverage, she said, tapping a document. The house title's still in your name. James never updated it after refinancing. He assumed you'd roll over. I leaned forward, my pulse quickening. So I can stop him. Keep the house. Diane nodded. More than that. You can sell it cash out and he can't block you. But we need to move fast. Her words lit a fire in me, one I hadn't felt in months. Selling the house wasn't just about money. It was about reclaiming my power, about showing James I wasn't the boring woman he'd discarded. I spent the afternoon with Diane, poring over paperwork, my hands steady for the first time in weeks. She found more. James had forged my signature on the loan, a reckless move that could bury him legally. This is fraud, Diane said, her voice calm but firm. We'll use it. Back at my apartment, I unpacked a single box, pulling out an old journal I'd kept when we bought the house. I flipped through it, my handwriting neat and hopeful, detailing every sacrifice, extra shifts, skipped vacations to afford that down payment. I traced the words, my throat tight. That house was my dream, not his. He didn't get to hand it to Tara like a trophy. I closed the journal, my jaw set, and called a real estate agent, Karen, who Clara had sworn by. I want it sold, I told her, my voice clear, as soon as possible. Karen met me the next day, her clipboard in hand, her energy brisk. We stood outside the house, snowflakes catching in my hair. It looked smaller somehow, less like a home and more like a battleground. "It's a great property," Karen said, jotting notes. "We'll list it high, move fast." "You sure about this?" I nodded, my breath visible in the cold. "I'm sure." Inside, I avoided the living room where I'd heard Tara's plans to redo my kitchen. I pointed Karen to the backyard, the patio I'd designed, and felt a pang but pushed it down. This wasn't about loss, it was about winning. That evening, I invited Clara over to my apartment, the first guest in my new space. She brought pizza, her nurse's scrubs swapped for jeans, and hugged me tight. "This place is you," she said, looking around. "Clean slate." I smiled, but my mind was on the house. Over pizza, I told her about the title, the loan, my plan to sell. Her eyes widened. "You're a badass, Em. He's not gonna know what hit him." I laughed, the sound foreign but real. "I just want what's mine," I said, and meant it. Clara stayed late, and we talked about her own battles, her ex, her kid, her long shifts. It grounded me, reminded me I wasn't alone. But as she left, my phone buzzed with a text from James. "We need to talk. Mediation tomorrow." My stomach twisted, but I typed back. "Fine." I pictured his face smug, thinking he'd won. He didn't know I held the cards now. I lay in bed, the apartment quiet, and felt something shift inside me. A strength I'd forgotten I had, rising like a tide ready to carry me into the fight. The mediation room was stark, a long table under fluorescent lights, the air heavy with tension. I'm Emily, 35, and I sat across from James, my hands folded, the house title burning a hole in my resolve. Diane was beside me, her pen poised, while James's lawyer, a slick man named Paul, shuffled papers. James wouldn't meet my eyes, his jaw tight. Tara's absence, a loud silence. I'd spent the morning with Karen finalizing the house listing, and now here I was, ready to play my hand. Paul started, his voice smooth. "My client seeks primary ownership of the marital home given his financial contributions." Diane cut in, calm but sharp. "Financial contributions. Let's discuss the unauthorized loan Mr. Thompson took against the property using a forged signature." James flinched, his eyes darting to me, but I kept my face still, my heart racing. Diane slid documents across the table, the loan details circled in red. James leaned forward, his voice low. "Em, you don't want to do this. It's our house. We can work it out." His tone was almost pleading, but I saw the calculation in his eyes, the same look he'd had when he called me boring. I took a breath, my voice steady. "It's my house, James. My name's on the title, and I'm selling it." The room went quiet, Paul's pen pausing, James's face paling. "Selling," he sputtered. "You can't." I leaned back, my hands unclenching. "I already have a buyer. Papers are in motion." It wasn't a bluff. Karen had called an hour ago confirming an offer above asking. James's lawyer whispered something to him, but I didn't care. For the first time, I felt the weight shifting the power mine. Diane touched my arm, a silent nod, and I knew I'd crossed a line I couldn't uncross. But it felt right. Back at my apartment, I met Leo, my neighbor, a retired accountant with a kind smile. I'd asked him to review our finances, and he spread papers across my tiny kitchen table, his glasses slipping down his nose. "You're in better shape than you think," he said, pointing to a spreadsheet. "James' loan's a mess, but your savings are intact and the house sale will clear your debts." I nodded, sipping tea, the numbers grounding me. "What about investments?" I asked. "Something for me, not us." Leo grinned, pulling out a folder. "I've got ideas. Small business funds, low risk. You could start that consultancy you mentioned." I blinked, surprised he'd remembered my offhand comment about my marketing dreams. The idea took root, a flicker of a future I hadn't dared imagine. I thanked him, my mind buzzing, and spent the evening sketching a business plan, my laptop glowing in the dark. It wasn't just about money. It was about building something James couldn't touch. The next day, Clara threw me a divorce party at a local cafe, a quiet corner, with fairy lights and strong coffee. Hannah was there, her smile proud, and Marcus showed up, his laughter easing my nerves. We toasted with lattes, their warmth a contrast to the snow outside. But halfway through, I overheard a voice at the counter, Tara, ordering a drink, her tone smug. "James and I are set," she said to the barista. "New house, new life. His ex is history." My blood boiled, but I didn't move. Clara grabbed my hand, her eyes fierce. "She's nothing, Em. You're winning." I nodded, but Tara's words stung, a reminder of what I'd lost. I excused myself, stepping outside, the cold biting my cheeks. I stood under a street lamp, snow swirling, and let the anger settle into something sharper, determination. I wasn't history. I was just beginning. Back inside, I rejoined the group, their chatter a lifeline. Later, I checked my email. Karen's update, the sale moving faster than expected. I opened my bank app, transferring the last of our joint funds to a new account, one James couldn't access. Each click was a step of reclaiming. I closed my laptop and stood crossing to my window. The snow fell softly, blanketing the world, and I pressed my hand to the glass, my reflection steady. I wasn't the woman James had broken. I was someone new, and I was done running. January's frost coated my apartment's windows, the world outside brittle and still. I'm Emily, 35, and the house sale was done, the keys handed over to a young couple with bright eyes. The money sat in my new account, a lifeline I'd wrested from James's grasp. Selling our home wasn't just a transaction, it was my declaration that I wouldn't be erased. But as I sat at my kitchen counter, sipping black coffee, the victory felt heavy, like a stone I hadn't meant to carry. "Karen, my real estate agent, called that morning, her voice crisp. "It's official, Emily. Funds are cleared. You're free." I thanked her, my throat tight, and hung up. Free. The word echoed, but it didn't feel like freedom, not yet. I opened my laptop, checking the balance, the numbers stark and real. Enough to pay off debt, start my consultancy, maybe even breathe again. But James's face flashed in my mind, his smug certainty that I'd cave. I wondered what he was feeling now, stripped of the prize he'd claimed for Tara. I drove to the courthouse for a follow-up hearing, Diane at my side, her briefcase a steady presence. The room was cold, the judge's voice a drone as she reviewed our case. James sat across from me, his tie crooked, his eyes hollow. He looked smaller, like the man I'd loved had been hollowed out by his own choices. Diane presented evidence of his loan fraud, her tone measured. Mr. Thompson's actions kindized my client's equity. The sale was her only recourse. The judge nodded, scribbling notes, and I felt James's stare, heavy with something I couldn't name. Outside, he cornered me in the parking lot, his breath visible in the chill. "You didn't have to do this," he said, his voice low, almost broken. "Tara's pregnant. We needed that house." My stomach twisted, but I searched his eyes, seeing the lie. He'd used that tactic before, years ago, when we fought over money. "Don't," I said, my voice flat. "You don't get to guilt me anymore." He stepped closer, his hands out pleading. "I'm begging you. Stop the sale. We can fix this." But the sale was done, and his words were dust. I drove away, my hands tight on the wheel, his plea ringing in my ears. Pregnant. The thought gnawed, even if I didn't believe it. At my apartment, I found a voicemail from Marcus, my coworker, his voice warm. "Heard about the sale, Em? You're killing it." Drinks later, I smiled, his support a lifeline, but I wasn't ready to celebrate. I called Leo instead, needing his calm. He came over, his scarf dusted with snow, and we sat with tea, my new table cluttered with business plans. "You did what you had to," Leo said, his eyes kind. but it's okay to feel the weight. I nodded, staring into my cup. I thought I'd feel lighter. But it's complicated. He patted my hand. Winning doesn't always feel like winning. Not at first. His words settled me, but the weight stayed a reminder of the home I'd lost, even if I'd won the war. That evening, I walked to the mailbox, the snow crunching under my boots. A letter waited no return address, the handwriting sharp. I opened it, my pulse quickening. It was from Tara's sister, Elise, her words venomous. "You're cruel, Emily. You left them with nothing. Tara's breaking, and it's on you." I stood there, the paper trembling in my hands, her accusation a mirror to my doubts. Had I gone too far? The cold bit my fingers, and I tucked the letter away. My heart a tangle of defiance and guilt, frozen in the moment. I folded Elise's letter and slid it into a drawer, its words still clawing at me. I'm Emily, 35, and the house was gone, sold the money a quiet power in my account. But standing in my apartment, the snow falling outside, I felt no triumph. The victory was sharp-edged with questions I couldn't answer. Had I broken Tara like Elise claimed? Was James as lost as he'd seemed in the parking lot? I pushed the thoughts down, but they lingered heavy as the frost. The next day, I went to work the marketing firm's buzz, a faint distraction. Marcus caught me in the break room, pouring coffee, his smile cautious. "People are talking, Em. About the house, James. They're saying you played hardball." I stirred my coffee, the spoon clinking. "Let them talk," I said, but my voice was thin. He nodded, hesitant. "Just watch your back. Gossip's brutal." I forced a smile, but his words sank in. My fight was public now, a story for others to pick apart. Back at my desk, I found an email from Karen the agent. The buyers had moved in, sent a thank you note for the smooth sale. Attached was a photo of them on the porch, their toddler waving. I stared, my chest tight. That porch was where I dreamed of my own kids years ago, before James and I gave up trying. I closed the email, my fingers cold, and focused on a client pitch, but the image stayed a ghost of what might have been. That evening, Clara came over, her arms full of takeout. We sat on my couch, the apartment's bare walls softened by candlelight. She talked about her kids' school play, her voice bright, but I caught her watching me like she was gauging my cracks. "You did the right thing," she said, unprompted, setting down her fork. "James and Tara don't get to win." I nodded, picking at my noodles. "Then why doesn't it feel like I won?" She reached for my hand, her grip firm. "It will. Give it time." Her words were kind, but they didn't reach the ache. After she left, I walked to the old house, drawn by something I couldn't name. The new family's lights glowed, their laughter spilling out. I stood across the street, snow dusting my coat, and noticed a single item on the curb, a broken clock, the one James gave me for our 10th anniversary, its hands stuck at midnight. I'd left it behind, a silent rebuke. Now discarded, it felt like my marriage once cherished, now trash. I turned away, my boots crunching, and saw Mrs. Carter, the neighbor, on her porch. Her eyes met mine, not with pity, but something colder, like judgment. She'd always liked James, his charm winning her over. I nodded, but she looked away, pulling her shawl tight. The rejection stung, a reminder that some saw me as the villain, the woman who'd upended lives. I walked home, the cold seeping into my bones, Elise's letter echoing. Cruel, she'd called me. Maybe she was right. At my apartment, I found a voicemail from Diane. "Court date set. James's fraud claim is weak. You're in the clear." Her voice was steady, but it didn't lift me. I sat on my bed, the clock's image burned into me, and felt the weight of what I'd done. I'd won the house the money, but the cost was this: a neighborhood whispering a sister, accusing a man I'd loved, reduced to a shadow. I curled up the room dark and let the silence settle my heart. A quiet bruise, no fight left to give. Spring bloomed across Ohio, soft greens painting the park near my apartment. I'm Emily, 35, and the weight of selling the house of outmaneuvering James had settled into a quieter ache. My new life was taking shape: a small marketing consultancy, a desk by the window, emails from clients piling up. But today, I needed air, needed to feel the world beyond my screen. I walked to the park, a thermos of tea in hand, and sat on a bench, watching joggers and kids chasing kites. The breeze carried a warmth I hadn't felt in months, and I let it sink in my shoulders, loosening. I'd been running on anger, then resolve, but now sitting here, I could breathe. The consultancy was small, but mine built from the house sales proceeds. I'd sent my first invoice last week, the payment clearing like a promise kept. It wasn't just money, it was proof I could start over, that I wasn't the woman James had called worthless. My phone buzzed a text from Hannah road trip this weekend, just us. I smiled, typing back a yes. She'd been my rock, but we'd clashed when she doubted my choices. I wanted to mend that, to find our old rhythm. I sipped my tea, the chamomile soothing, and thought of her laugh, how it used to fill our childhood home. We'd lost that ease somewhere in my marriage's collapse, and I missed it more than I'd admitted. A man sat on the next bench, his scarf loose despite the warmth. It was Leo, my neighbor, his accounting ledger swapped for a book of poetry. He waved, joining me, his eyes crinkling. "You look settled," he said, his voice gentle. I shrugged, tucking my thermos away. "Trying to be. Work's good, but I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop." He nodded, turning a page. "After my wife passed, I rebuilt too. It's not about forgetting the pain, it's about making room for something else." His words landed soft, but deep, like stones in a still pond. I'd been so focused on winning, on proving James wrong, that I hadn't let myself feel the space I was carving out. Leo shared a poem, his voice steady, about a tree growing through cracks in stone. It wasn't flashy, but it stuck, a quiet reminder that strength didn't need to shout. We sat in silence after the park's hum wrapping around us, and I felt a shift, like a door creaking open inside me. Back at my apartment, I started a small garden on my balcony, a few pots of herbs, basil, thyme, rosemary. I'd watched my mom tend her garden as a kid, her hands sure in the soil, and the memory steadied me. I pressed seeds into the dirt, the act simple but grounding, each one a bet on tomorrow. The pots lined up small and green against the city's gray, and I watered them. My fingers damped, my heart a little lighter. That evening, I cooked for myself a stir-fry with peppers and ginger, the kitchen filling with warmth. I ate at my table, no rush, no waiting for James' footsteps. The silence wasn't empty, it was mine. I thought of Leo's poem, of Hannah's text, of the herbs waiting to grow. I wasn't whole yet, but I was building something piece by piece. I cleared my plate, the park's breeze still in my mind, and felt my breath slow, steady, ready for what came next. The weekend arrived, and Hannah's car rolled up, her smile wide through the windshield. I'm Emily, 35, and we hit the road, a duffel bag in the back seat, the Ohio countryside blurring past. The air was crisp, spring's promise in every budding tree, and I felt lighter, like I'd shed a skin I hadn't known I was wearing. Hannah turned down the radio, her voice soft. "I'm sorry I pushed you so hard, Em. I just hated seeing you hurt." I looked at her, my sister, my anchor, and nodded. "You were right to push. I needed it." We drove to a lake town an hour away, a place we'd loved as kids, its docks lined with bobbing boats. We walked the shore pebbles crunching under our sneakers, the water glinting under a pale sun. Hannah talked about her job, her new apartment, but then she stopped her eyes on the horizon. "You're different now," she said. "Stronger." "I'm proud of you." I swallowed the words, warming me more than the sun. "I'm trying," I said, and meant it. We rented a canoe, our paddles dipping in rhythm, the lake's quiet wrapping us close. I thought of our mom, how she'd bring us here, her laughter mixing with the waves. I'd lost that joy somewhere, buried it under James's betrayal. But out here, it stirred again, small but real. Hannah splashed me grinning, and I laughed, the sound startling me. It wasn't forced, wasn't fragile. It was mine. Back at my apartment, I invited Clara, Marcus, and Leo for dinner, a simple spread of roasted chicken and wine. The table was small, the chairs mismatched, but the room filled with their voices, their stories. Clara teased Marcus about his bad dating app luck. Leo shared a tale of his first job, and I watched them, my heart full. These were my people, not bound by a house or a ring, but by choice. I raised my glass, my voice steady. "To new starts," I said, and they echoed it, their smiles a mirror to my own. After they left, I sat alone, a notebook open. I wrote a letter to James, not to send, but to release. I poured out the hurt, the anger, the love I'd carried too long. "You broke me," I wrote, "but I'm not broken." I folded it, tucked it into a box with old photos, and felt a weight lift. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was closest step toward letting go. The next day, I walked to the park again, my thermos swapped for a book. I sat by a willow tree, its branches swaying, and read the words blurring as I thought of the lake, of Hannah's pride, of my herbs sprouting on the balcony. I'd built this life not from James' ruins, but from my own hands. A kid ran past, chasing a dog, and I smiled, the moment small but enough. I closed my book, the air cool on my face, and let my breath settle slow and sure, the world steady around me. Summer hummed through my apartment, the windows open, a warm breeze rustling the curtains. I'm Emily, 35, and the consultancy I'd started was growing its roots steady in the life I'd carved out. My desk was cluttered with client notes, a mug of coffee cooling beside me. And I felt a rhythm to my days, a quiet purpose. The house, James, Tara. They were shadows now not gone, but softer, less sharp. I'd learned to live with their weight, not as a burden, but as part of my story. Mornings began with a walk to a local coffee shop, a ritual I'd built. I'd sit by the window, sketching ideas for campaigns, watching strangers pass, families, couples, lone readers like me. The barista, a girl named Lily, knew my order: black coffee, no sugar. She'd chat about her art classes, her dreams, and I'd listen her energy, a reminder of who I'd been before the world hardened me. I tipped extra, her smile, a small gift I could give back. One Saturday, I volunteered at a community center, a place I'd found through Clara. The room buzzed with women, their stories, raw divorces, losses, fresh starts. I led a workshop on branding, simple tips for their small businesses. But it was their questions, their trust, that moved me. A woman named Sadie lingered after, her hands twisting. "Your story," she said, her voice low. "It got me out of a bad marriage." "Thank you." I froze, my throat tight. I hadn't shared much, just enough to connect. But her words were a mirror, showing me how far I'd come. Back home, I tended my balcony garden, the herbs now lush, their scent sharp when I brushed them. I'd added lavender, its purple blooms a nod to my mom's old yard. Watering them, I thought of Sadie, of Lily, of the women whose names I didn't know. They were building, like me, not from nothing, but from what they'd carried. I clipped a sprig of basil, rubbing it between my fingers, and felt a steadiness, a root I'd planted myself. Evenings were for reading, a habit I'd rediscovered. I curled up with novels, their pages worn, and let the stories pull me out of my head. One night, I found a quote underlined, something I'd marked years ago. "You don't find yourself, you make yourself." I read it again, the words settling deep. James had tried to unmake me, but I'd chosen otherwise, piece by careful piece. Marcus stopped by one afternoon, his laptop under his arm. We'd been collaborating on a client project, his humor a steady thread in my days. "You're different, Em," he said, setting up at my table. "Calmer. Like you figured something out." I smiled, pouring him coffee. "Not figured out, just moving forward." He nodded like he understood, and we worked in quiet sync, the kind of ease I hadn't known in years. I started journaling again, not letters to James, but notes to myself. Plans, fears, small wins. One entry read, "Today I laughed without thinking about it." Another, "I don't check the bank app obsessively anymore." They were small, but they mattered, markers of a life no longer defined by loss. I kept the journal by my bed, its pages a map of who I was becoming. As the sun set, I stood on my balcony, the city's hum soft below. My lavender swayed, catching the light, and I leaned against the railing, my coffee mug warm in my hands. The ache of the past was still there, a faint pulse, but it didn't own me. I'd built this my work, my mornings, my quiet nights, and it was enough. I took a slow breath, the air sweet with summer, and let the moment hold me whole and still. One evening, I drove to a nearby beach, a place I'd never visited with James. I'm Emily, 35, and the sand was cool under my feet, the waves a steady whisper. I carried a small jar filled with scraps of paper, old to-do lists, budget notes, reminders from a life that no longer fit. I scattered them into the tide, watching them dissolve, my heart quiet. It wasn't dramatic, just a letting go, a way to mark the woman I was, now not the one I'd been. I heard from Clara that James and Tara had split his debts, piling up, their plans unraveled. I waited for satisfaction, but it didn't come. Instead, I felt a strange pity, not for him, but for the man he'd chosen to become. I didn't hate him anymore. Hate was too heavy, and I'd learned to travel light. My life wasn't about proving him wrong. It was about proving myself right every day in the choices I made. I hired Marcus full-time for the consultancy, his ideas sparking new projects. We worked late one night, pizza boxes open, laughing over a client's wild demands. He paused, looking at me. "You're building something real, Em. Not everyone can do that." I nodded, the words settling deep. Real. That's what I wanted, not a perfect life, but one that felt true, grounded in my own hands. At the community center, I kept volunteering, my workshops growing. Sadie, the woman who'd thanked me, brought me a sketch she'd drawn, a simple flower, her way of saying I'd helped her bloom. I framed it, hanging it by my desk, a reminder that healing wasn't just mine. It rippled, touching lives I'd never expected. I wasn't a savior, just a woman who'd walked through fire and learned to share the light. One morning, I found a new client email, a big contract, the kind I'd once dreamed of. I signed it, my pen steady, and felt a pride that wasn't loud but deep, like a river finding its course. I walked to the coffee shop, Lily waving as I entered, and sat with my notebook planning the project. The world moved around me, strangers, stories, lives, and I was part of it, not apart from it. I'd found my place not by chasing it, but by building it day by day. The lesson wasn't grand or flashy. It was this: my worth wasn't in what James saw or what the world assumed. It was in the quiet choices, showing up, starting over, choosing myself when it was easier to shrink. I'd learned to hold my own heart, to trust its beat, even when it faltered. That was enough. More than enough. What's a moment that made you choose yourself? Share it below. I'd love to hear your story. If this resonated, hit like, subscribe, or share it with someone who needs it. Thank you for listening, for being here. Keep building your light wherever you are.